You guys get me. I'm gonna show you. I have a blanket on. I'm like hiding over here with my ice pack on my leg. It's freezing. So you guys get me. It looks like I'm taking a nap in here, but with this hip, I gotta do what I can here. Thanks for being here today, guys. We're excited for day two.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, Aaron, I didn't mean to take you off. I was trying to add me and I replaced you. So,
That's okay. You're good.
all right. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all. Many of you returning for our second day. Hang on, I'm having some technical difficulties here. All right. Good morning, Michelle, Tara, Roxy from Alaska. What, Marsha from West Virginia, welcome back. Hello, Roxy from Argentina. Good to see you. Michelle, Fort Worth. Gail, Chicago. Hi, Simona. Thank you. All right, guys, we'll give it another minute for people to trickle in here before we get started. Good morning. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Jay. Hi.
I don't know who that was, but hello
That's me
back.
right
Good,
here.
good to see Dr. Ruby again today. Frida. All right, guys, let's jump in and get started today. Welcome back to the Corporate Speaker Summit, Day 2. I'm here with Aaron Lomanjack and Stephen Rowell, your co-host for these 3 days. And we've got another, if you were here yesterday, we had an amazing lineup of speakers. And today is going to not disappoint as well. We have some incredible people lined up to talk today. And I am leading it off. So I'm going to jump right in and get into my presentation. So I'm Jay Fairbrother, the Mastermind guy, co-host of this summit. And today I want to talk to you about scaling your business from one night stands to soulmate clients. This is one of my one night stands. This was an event that I spoke at, and I was humbled by having a standing ovation at the end of this talk. But this was a more recent talk, and after this talk, I actually had something to sell. I had a high ticket program to move people towards from this talk. Now, I can tell you that wasn't always the case, because when I first started speaking and I didn't have that high ticket program, oftentimes I'd get applause or maybe a standing ovation, but I really wasn't monetizing it. And that is so often what happens to us when we give that great talk and we end up with book sales or people joining our community or maybe buying our course. Maybe it leads to one-on-one clients, hopefully even a consulting gig. But all of that creates basically one-time revenue. And what's missing is leverage. What's missing is long-term revenue, recurring revenue. And that's what I want to talk about today. because every time we speak to a room, we're going to build know, like, and trust for 80 to 90% of the audience. But there's a portion of the audience, even after one talk, that we move to know, love, and trust. And those are the people we want to make sure that we're creating something for them that leads to long-term, high-ticket, sustainable revenue. Does that make sense? So are you capitalizing on this portion with a leverage recurring revenue sticky offer? Obviously, I'm going to talk to you today about masterminds. And for some of you, you might think that masterminds, wait, for corporate clients, I don't get it. Because often it's not the first thing that comes to mind. And certainly the other speakers were having to this 3 days, and Aaron and Stephen with his champions and train the trainer models. Those are sort of the things that more commonly come to mind. But I want to open your eyes to the possibilities of creating masterminds for your clients and the employees of your clients. So I've been doing this a little while. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. And I wanted to share this comment from Nancy Jutton, one of the leaders in our industry, who basically credits me with fundamentally reshaping how she runs her lean, profitable boutique online business. I helped Nancy create her first mastermind 3 years ago, and almost all of the members who started with her are still in that mastermind 3 years later. And in fact, Nancy created a second mastermind not too long ago for a slightly different avatar at a higher price point. And because of her experience running that first mastermind, she filled the second one within like 2 months without a lot of effort, without a fancy sales funnel, and without long, drawn-out launches. So I want to cover some reasons why masterminds are such a good option to create high-ticket offers. What are some of the reasons that masterminds are a good idea for you and your business? So the first concept is there's less reliance on content and training. In this information overloaded, digitally disconnected world that we live in, the last thing people are really starving for is more information, more content. And with AI, which is still in its infancy, right now, AI can train you on anything in the world that you want to learn for free in minutes. So every day we sit here, the value of content, information, and training is going down. But what is going up is the value of relationships and human connection. Another reason I love this model is because it's low tech, and you don't need a huge audience to fill a mastermind with 10 or 20 of the right people. You don't need a big fancy sales funnel, and you don't need thousands of people in your audience. A lot of people think, oh, I'm not ready to create a mastermind for my business yet because I don't have that big audience. I don't have that big following. And that's the beauty of this model is you can, if you've got 100 or a couple hundred people that at least are in that know, like, and trust phase that you can move to know, love, and trust, then you can fill one of these programs. It also creates recurring revenue and what I call stickiness. Recurring revenue, because when you offer a program that's 6 or 12 months long, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 price point, 80% of those people are going to pay you monthly. And that creates that recurring revenue so that you're not stuck in the roller coaster of revenue doing launches and revenue spikes and nothing in between. And stickiness is this idea of attracting and keeping clients for 3 years, not 3 months. Because when you enroll people into a program, when it's designed correctly, if you get the initial commitment for 6 or 12 months, the program doesn't end in 6 or 12 months. That's just renewal time. And when you design the container properly and it's focused on building relationships and human connection, at the end of those 6 or 12 months, people don't want to leave, even if you've run out of content. But my favorite reason that I think it's a great model is you get to lead the people you're most passionate to help. Because in the mastermind model, you don't allow in anyone who can write the check. That's what we get in group coaching programs, in courses. Anybody recognize Couch Guy here? Anybody had Couch Guy in your course or group coaching program in the past? The guy who doesn't show up, doesn't do the work, most importantly, doesn't get the results. Because most of us, we're in this business not to create a fortune for ourselves. We're in it because we want to help people and change lives. And when we get couch guys, it's very difficult to create any real transformation when they don't show up, do the work, and implement what we're trying to help them with. I love this concept of jumping out of bed in the morning because you get to work with your chosen, curated clients in that mastermind model. Now, let me get to some clarification around what a mastermind is and what it isn't. And there are different types of masterminds. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you about 5 or 6 different types of masterminds that work with this corporate model. This word salad, excuse me, this word salad is what the words most people think about when they hear the term mastermind, right? It's support, mentorship, group coaching, and accountability, etc. Napoleon Hill coined the term mastermind like 90 years ago in Think and Grow Rich. And his concept was very simple. You put one person with a brain in a room, second person with a brain, creates this third invisible, intangible force that he labeled the mastermind. Imagine putting 8 to 14 brains in the same room, the size of that invisible, intangible force that's created when you tap into the collective experience, collective knowledge, and collective wisdom in the room. That's where the value of masterminding really comes out, is in tapping into peer learning and peer support and accountability. So this word salad to me is what a mastermind's really about. It's about community, commonality, confidentiality, comfort, intimacy, and most importantly, connection. It's about human connection. Now, why should we care about that? Well, in 2023, the US Surgeon General declared an epidemic in our country. It had nothing to do with a disease or a virus. It was an epidemic of loneliness. And the World Health Organization in 2024 created an entire commission, it's still running, to address the global crisis of social isolation and loneliness. People are starving for human connection. This is a topic I know a little bit about because you could say I was kind of the poster child for disconnection growing up. My father died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 10 years old. And like most 10-year-old kids would react, I withdrew, I disconnected, I got angry at the world, became that lone wolf. And maybe that lone wolfiness is what led me to start my first business. I started my first company at age 30 and pretty quickly grew it to $1 million in revenue. But I got stuck there. I couldn't seem to get beyond that $1 million range. And I hired coaches and consultants and I read all the business books and I couldn't figure out how to scale. And that's when I joined my very first mastermind. And that was 25 years ago. And I can still remember to this day walking out of that very first meeting and saying to myself, oh my God, I found my tribe. Like after one meeting, I felt like these people were me. They got me. They were going through the same fears and frustrations that I was going through trying to build a business. So we joined that first mastermind simply to become better entrepreneurs, grow our businesses. But what happened, I wasn't expecting, because within 4 or 5 months in these meetings, I'm starting to watch grown men break down and cry as they open up and start to talk about their screwed up marriages and their kid problems and the anxiety and depression they're feeling from trying to grow a business. And this was not what we signed up for. But to me, as an adult, it was my first real experience with this kind of human connection, this kind of vulnerability. And so I went all in. For the next several years, I started joining every mastermind I could, often in 3 or 4 at a time. And guess what happened? That first business took off. I grew it to a couple hundred employees, $10 million in annual revenue. And I was fortunate enough to sell that business in 2004. Life was good. You sell an 8-figure business, life gets pretty good pretty quickly. So I traveled extensively. I bought 3 other businesses. I invested in a lot of different things. Life was good. But has anyone here put me in the chat if you've had that time in your life where things are going along swimmingly and something out of your control happens? Anybody been there? I see lots of hands. In 2008, what we now refer to as the Great Recession, the world financial crisis, began. And by 2012, I had lost everything. In that time period, I quite literally went from being a multimillionaire living in a mansion overlooking one of the rivers of Pittsburgh to living in my friend's basement, broke, bankrupt, divorced, alone, humiliated, and frankly ashamed. Because for 15 years, I had built this identity as this really successful serial entrepreneur. And there I was sitting in that basement. I didn't even own a car. I lived in that basement literally for 5 months, but figuratively more like 5 years. I just wanted to hide. I didn't want to be seen. I quit almost everything I was involved in at the time. I quit networking groups. I quit friendships. I quit some of the masterminds that I was in. But I stayed in one thing. That very first mastermind that I joined, I stayed in that one through this time period. And those people helped me in ways I can't even articulate. Financial, emotional, spiritual support, to the point that I don't think I'd be sitting here today if it weren't for the support of those people that I refer to as brothers and sisters, lifelong friends that were in that mastermind. Remember, I mentioned the concept stickiness. I stayed in that mastermind, that very first one, for 17 years. That stickiness. So in a very real sense, you can say that masterminds helped me 10x my first business and saved my life during the most difficult time that I've had. That's why I'm passionate about the power of what masterminds can create. And I'm passionate about helping people to create programs that can deliver human connection, that can build relationships and create true transformation. Now, let's tie this to the corporate environment, because connection, human connection within corporations is critically important. And human connection amongst entrepreneurs is critically important. There are hundreds of thousands, it might even be millions, I don't know, but there are at least hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs across the world who participate regularly in peer entrepreneur masterminds. But within a corporation, it also creates retention, increased productivity, and friendships among employees. And this isn't a new concept, it's been studied. There are statistics out there that leaders in structured peer advisory groups grow revenue over 3 times faster or more than double the profitability compared to similar leaders who don't. Dun & Bradstreet analysis, CEO peer groups grew revenue by 4.6%, while comparable non-member shrank 4.7% within the same time period. And there are field experiments that show that improving peer ability by 10% can raise individual productivity, demonstrating measurable peer output. There's a book out there I'd recommend if you're interested in this concept called The Friendship Advantage. It's written by a friend of mine, Mo Fadlbob, where he talks about this concept of internal peer masterminds within corporations and the power that that human connection equates to in terms of retention and productivity. So that's sort of the framework that I want you to think about. And I want you to compare this model to often what we get sucked into in this industry, which is called the ascension ladder model, where we think that we need to move people slowly through every one of these steps, a lead magnet, a book, etc., to get them in our audience, then some kind of a free workshop, challenge, or webinar, then give them a low-end offer to get them a little taste, and then offer them a course, and then maybe a group coaching program, and then maybe someday you can graduate like the big players and have your own mastermind. But what happens is a lot of people get stuck in the middle. Because it's so complex and there's so many pieces to create those low-end offers and mid-level offers, and then you get couch guys. You get the guys who won't show up and do the work. So all this effort we put into launching and filling these programs, and then we end up with clients. They may not be unhappy, right? They may, like I have a course. I did this. I followed this industry model. I developed a low ticket offer and then a course. And I've had people go through my course and they're amazingly happy with it and they write me a glowing testimonial. But you know what? They didn't create a mastermind through the course. They didn't implement and do the work. To me, that's more frustrating. I'd rather see them have success than get the testimonial. So there is a model where you can skip a lot of these steps and lead people directly towards a high ticket mastermind. I want to define a little bit further some of these definitions between what is a mastermind and what isn't. There's memberships and communities. Those are usually ongoing, unlimited, the Facebook groups, circle groups, school groups, etc. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're paid. You know, back in the day, 15 years ago, there were lots of these early internet marketers made gazillions of dollars offering, $17 a month, $27 a month programs. But that's largely gone away. Some people are able to monetize their communities, but most communities are free. They have low perceived value. Group coaching is typically 3 to 6 months and can have 15 to up to 100, sometimes even more than 100 clients, because it's focused on content and training and information. But then there's what I call a hybrid mastermind, which is a cross between group coaching and that true, pure Napoleon Hill small cohort style mastermind. That true mastermind is usually 8 to 14 clients. And while the initial commitment is 6 or 12 months, you want to design it so that it doesn't end in 6 or 12 months. That's just renewal time. The hybrid program is a cross between the two, because for a lot of us as thought leaders, mentors, coaches, trainers, we have people come into our world and they want our coaching and mentoring and training. But the way you elevate the transformation and elevate the results and impact you're having is by trickling down some of the things we do in masterminding into your hybrid program. Does that make sense? Everybody with me so far? So to further distinguish, if I was running a small, true cohort mastermind, Napoleon Hill style, first of all, I could create one that really the big promise is just access and influence, right? That could be pretty much the big promise of the mastermind. But usually I'm also including facilitation and accountability. So in a pure cohort, true mastermind style, this is the entire program: access, facilitation, accountability, connection, right? Now, as I move down this list, that's where I start to enter into the hybrid world, where I don't not include these things that you're looking at, but I start to include coaching and mentoring, and I start to include content and training. Makes sense? That's what I call the hybrid program. Then it is a combination of all of these. And I'll give you some examples of how this might break out. In that small Napoleon Hill cohort, true mastermind, 8 to 14 people, it might only be 5 or 10% content and training. It might only be 5 to 15% coaching and hot seats, because I still keep the focus on facilitation and accountability and perhaps access and influence. How can we grow each other's networks? How can we support each other with referrals, with that access and influence? So that's more like a true mastermind. The hybrid mastermind, now I'm going to increase these percentages of content training, coaching, and mentoring, and less, but not excluding, the facilitation, accountability, access, and influence. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to give you a little framework to think about the difference between that small cohort versus the hybrid, which can grow bigger. Now, to grow a hybrid over about 40 people, you better be a damn good facilitator and have ways to be able to maintain the human connection piece, the relationship piece. Because without that, you just have a group coaching program. I want to give you a couple more lenses to think about in terms of, as you think about what kind of program I could create. Because I don't believe in a cookie cutter way to create masterminds. There's lots of different kinds and there's lots of different approaches. So there are task-oriented programs. That's typically your course or your group coaching programs, right? The one anyone can get in that can write the check. Those have typically specific outcomes. In my 8-week course, you're going to have X, Y, and Z deliverables. They're usually a fixed length and they have a specific outcome. Versus process-oriented groups. Process-oriented groups could be a membership or a community, but also masterminds, where it's more open-ended and it's about transformation and growth. One way to think about this distinction is you think about AA. AA meetings are literally process-oriented meetings. It's not like you learn the 12 steps and it's over and you graduate and move on, right? The value in AA is the process of the facilitation, the support, and the accountability. Now, AA isn't a mastermind because it's an open revolving door. Anyone can come in and it's anonymous, right? But that concept of that process-oriented group versus the task-oriented linear program where we do first step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then the program ends. Make sense? I also want to give you a lens to think about in terms of what kind of capital you're building in these types of programs. Because intellectual capital is what we get in courses and group coaching programs. It's information, education, teaching, training. That's the thing that AI is diminishing the perceived value of intellectual capital every single day. And then there's social capital. That's what we get in community and memberships, groups, where there's surface level relationships. Like maybe in the course of a 8 week or 3 month program, you shared a breakout room a couple of times with somebody. So you developed a relationship, built some social capital, but you didn't really see the real person. Relationship capital is what you can build in masterminds. This is where you deepen the human connection and you open up to get the vulnerability revealed, where people show up, drop the masks, show up as their real selves, be unafraid to ask dumb questions because they know they're not going to be judged. Now, to do this there's a lot of nuance to it. To create the safety, the trust, the mutual respect, and the respect for confidentiality. But what we want to focus on is creating relationship capital. And that's what's being done inside some corporations where they have these internal peer masterminds. So I want to quickly run through some of the options that you have with your corporate clients for creating masterminds and as thought leaders. I'm going to go through each of these in detail. There's what I call the badass mastermind. There's a cross-industry peer mastermind. There's the internal leaders mastermind, an industry collective, board of experts, and what I call the Jedi Master mastermind. So let me hit each one of these. The badass mastermind. That's where, oops, that's a better view. That's where it's not about training. You are compiling some of the top 6, 8, 10, 12 people in a specific industry or within a niche that you are also an expert in. And people are paying just for access because you're assembling people that they normally would not be able to get that access to in an elite, exclusive, badass mastermind. So a good example of this is if you're familiar with Jeff Walker, one of the early internet gazillionaires. Jeff Walker, I don't know if he still has it, but I think he does, has $100,000 a year mastermind. Well, people don't join that mastermind to learn from Jeff Walker and get his coaching. They join it because he's assembled some of the other biggest badass gazillionaire internet entrepreneurs that I am willing to pay $100,000 for just to gain access. Make sense? So you could put together 6 former Fortune 500 C-suite clients and create a CXO inner circle for direct access to you and each other. That's one example. You could maybe take a cohort of hospital CEOs from non-competing regions and invite them into a paid room built entirely around the proximity to each other, right? You don't have to be a hospital CEO to run this type of mastermind. You have to have some respect and authority and credibility. Mostly, you just have to have access to this network so that you can pull these people in. Or you could maybe put together founder CEOs of $50 million plus manufacturing companies, maybe that you've consulted with individually, they're clients of yours, and you bring them together as a standing access only group. Make sense? There's also what I call the cross-industry peer mastermind. So these are people in different industries, but same titles, meaning same levels, because there has to be mutual respect. There has to be commonality with people in a mastermind to get them to get to that level of safety and trust and respect that they will be vulnerable and drop the masks. Some examples of this. Maybe you, a CFO from a healthcare system, a CFO from a logistics company, a CFO from a SaaS firm. In other words, you create a peer CFO mastermind. And again, you don't necessarily have to be a CFO. You want to have some expertise and a credibility and authority within the financial space so that you speak the same language and they treat you with respect. Or maybe you take the heads of HR firms. Many of you are targeting HR and L&D And that's where you have the relationships, right? So why not create a mastermind of all your L&D clients from different industries, as long as they're comparable in terms of size of business and size of team? Or maybe you create a mastermind with VP sales leaders from different industries. Again, similar size company or similar size teams, so that they all feel like they're alike and relate to each other and have commonality. That's the external variant. Internally, within the corporation, maybe you take the general managers from 5 regional business units, facilitated by you as a GM exchange, comparing market wins. Or you run a pilot cohort of plant managers across business units, and then you hand a model to an internal ops leader to replicate site by site. Stephen's going to talk more tomorrow about the train the trainer model, and this fits perfectly within that. Or client, if you're there, so you can offload this, you can set this up within a corporation and then step back, teach somebody else to run it, or you can go in and run these things yourself. So maybe you take country managers from a multinational's different offices around the world to come in and share with each other. There's also what I call the industry collective mastermind. This is where everyone is in the same industry. You have to be careful there's no competition here. But this is perfect for local regional superstars to lead and share their secret sauce and a brain trust of industry peers. Example might be 8 regional bank COOs, superintendents from school districts in 10 different states led by you as the industry expert, or plant managers from mid-sized food manufacturers in non-overlapping regions. So again, same industry, different locations and responsibilities. And then the Jedi Master Mastermind. This is what most of us end up creating for our clients. If you're going to create a mastermind out of your client base, usually it's going to fall into this category. They still are going to come. 80% of the reason they're going to join is because they want your wisdom, your coaching, and your mentorship. But they also will stay because of the collaboration and relationships you've built with their peers. You could do a cohort of one-off keynote clients. So clients you've delivered a single keynote for, and maybe they're all VP level leaders across industries. You could create a group of newly promoted C-suite execs, different companies folded into one recurring guided cohort. Or maybe regional GMs from past client companies mentored together by you as their guide at the front of the room. The Jedi Master Mastermind can also be an internal version where you personally mentor a cohort of the newly promoted VPs. You train a senior internal exec to become the company's own Jedi guide. Or you take high potential director track employees mentored directly by you through a 1-year leadership cohort that continues on as that internal mastermind. In the internal leaders concept, again, you break down silos. You get people who are at the same level in different operating units within a company. Those people, first of all, never usually get into a meeting where there isn't a superior or subordinate in the same room, which changes their behavior automatically. You create a mastermind of peers, so maybe they're all operations director level from different units, or they're, at a certain management level, one's in sales, one's in finance, one's in operations, one's, people that don't normally get to interact and talk with each other, or when they do, there's a superior or subordinate in the room. So you could create and facilitate a monthly circle of directors at a Fortune 500 company. You could train the company's L&D team to run it on their own. This is a model that exists right now. Google does this with their internal masterminds. Or you can use regional store managers across a retail chain's different divisions convened by you as a peer support group. And lastly, I want to talk about the Board of Experts Mastermind. This is a model where you fill specific seats around the table, where you might have a seat for HR, one HR person, one marketing person, one finance, one sales operations, etc. So you could create a standing council of all the companies in an internal corporation, all the VPs. You could have two internal facilitators to run these executive function councils in-house after you set it up and turn over the licensing. Maybe take the hospital systems, chief medical, chief nursing, chief ops, chief financials, etc. Or CEOs and entrepreneurs. Again, similar size companies. One entrepreneur has a sales company, one has an HR company, one has a finance company, one does marketing, etc. Now, just a little caveat there. This is one of the hardest masterminds to fill because it's easy to fill maybe the first 4 or 5 seats, but then for the last seats, you're only looking for specific expertise in specific industries. Make sense? So that's just a little warning on that one. So all of this is part of my concept of simplifying your business, making more impact and more income, with fewer clients, attracting a better quality client, the ones who show up and do the work and get results, and keeping those clients for longer. What mastermind can you create? I threw a lot at you this morning just in terms of get your wheels spinning a little bit in terms of the possibilities that might be open for you to think outside the box, to think outside of just, I go from keynote to selling some books to a workshop to a consulting gig or project-based consulting gig. How can you create something that creates recurring revenue, that creates longevity of clients? How can you create something? I run 3 masterminds of my own, and every person in those masterminds has been hand selected and curated by me. I have no couch guys. I don't let them in. So I literally have put myself in that situation that I jump out of bed in the morning because it's mastermind meeting day, and I get to be with the people I love to work with. That I get as much from running and facilitating these meetings as they do from being involved in them. So my time is up. I just wanted to open your eyes to the possibility of what you can create with this model. And we'll open it up for questions here at this point. If you have a question, just raise your digital hand and I'd be happy to address it. And I do
Nancy
see a
has 2
couple.
questions. Yeah, Nancy has someone in the chat.
Yeah, would you be willing to share an example of what facilitation accountability would entail? So first of all, you have to get your head around the concept that in a mastermind, even in a hybrid, it's not always about you being on the pedestal, you, the guru on the stage, talking down to the troops, right? You're creating collaboration and support and accountability by having group discussions. So one quick example, if I'm running a hybrid or a mastermind and I put somebody in a hot seat, after we are now ready for the feedback portion of the hot seat, I don't say a word. I allow everyone else in the room to provide their feedback and support. And I act as like the cleanup hitter at the end to come in and add things that I think didn't come out of the group. Because I'd much rather them hear the support from a peer than even hear it from me, the person leading the program, the guru. And what happens, when you run these things for a while is the people in the group will actually start to mirror back what you would have said anyway, because you trained and coached them on how to respond to certain situations. is the badass mastermind kind of like facilitating executive roundtables, or where would that fit? Yes, absolutely. So executive roundtables, which is basically a peer mastermind, right? There are people and there are for-profit companies out there that sell the mastermind model to executives and to entrepreneurs. Some of them charging as much as $50,000 a year, sometimes even higher, for those executives or entrepreneurs to participate in the mastermind. Well, what they do is they set the barrier to entry so high. They create so much exclusivity. It's like I anybody who can join that group, it's priced to keep out people who aren't at the same level, right? So that's sort of the badass mastermind, where I'm going to provide you access to people, intimate access to people, real access to people who you would not otherwise get to be that close to get to be in that kind of relationship with. Does that make sense? All right, other questions? Dr. In agreements, do you offer option? In agreements, do you offer option to record or save a chat to have a record of good ideas? This is a good question, Dr. Ribby. So again, it depends on the type of mastermind, but I'll give you the hybrid answer, right? So like in my client mastermind, which is a year-long program, it is a hybrid. We have portions of that I deliver, which is the training, coaching, and mentoring. I record those. But we also have portions of meetings and often meetings that are exclusively masterminding meetings, and those are not recorded, because I want people to feel that safety so that they can really open up and share and be vulnerable. And we don't allow note takers or recordings in those portions of the meeting or in those separate meetings where, and again, it's about setting the expectations and the guidelines so people, it's not like they show up one day and they don't know whether this is training, this is masterminding. You want to give them clear expectations for what to expect. They know, and you can build a rhythm of like, yeah, okay, we get it. This is the part where we drop the recordings and note takers because we're going to get real. All right. Any other questions? Aaron, Stephen, anything to add here?
Sorry, I was trying to get back to the screen. I was over there making sure all your gifts and stuff are in there for the attendees. No, I think, the thing is that, I love always thinking about recurring income. And for those who are like, oh, I'm so tired of this income roller coaster. I get a client, then there's nothing for a while, then there's this and there's that. It's like, get off the roller coaster. Masterminds is a way that you can have that recurring income every single month. And remember, you don't, what I love about a mastermind is you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Right. I think a lot of people, when you think of mentorship, coaching, you usually have to be the smartest person in the room, right? Or at least be able to get questions, dig deep with people, do that kind of stuff if you're coaching. But it's really truly like you can show up and they run themselves, but you're part of that as well. And so it, to me, if you're don't have like a coaching package or a consulting package or some of these things, this is a really easy way to be able to create something where you're not responsible for people's success, kind of feels like, right? It kind of takes that back a little bit. So if you've been scared of, coaching or mentoring or any of those, other things where they're buying your brain and they're buying your IP and they're buying, that kind of situation. This is really this place where everybody is equal in what they contribute, what they give, and how they serve each other. And I know, because I've attended some of the events where you are part of their mastermind, and I see how they all support one another, where it's like, oh, I'm having an event. Everybody sends their people to that event, right? Or they all go. And so that's also another way of thinking about this is business wise. If you really want a community that helps support you to to also like help you fill rooms, to help you fill programs for affiliates, for JVs, those kinds of things. That's where this is built inside those mastermind rooms. So remember that this is a really easier thing to set up that you can do. And when I was doing workshops in corporate, I would finish my workshop, like I said yesterday, with an invitation to my external mastermind. And I had women from all over these tech companies, and they were getting each other jobs. They were supporting one another. This one was like, "I'm tired of my boss, and here's how he treats me." And this one's like, I used to have that same problem, and here's what I did. And it really, was a lot of fun. And then we would get together every quarter and do some fun things. And they just loved those interactions and those kind of retreats that we built into them. But it really was about them supporting them. So I think that this
Yep.
is a really great place for you guys to start as well.
I saw Dr. Denise's hand up for a second, then it went away. Dr. Denise, did you have a question?
No, that was actually a mistake.
No worries.
Thank you. I just got on a few minutes ago. I'm really sorry that I missed your presentation. It sounds really interesting.
Well, that's okay because we have a way that you can capture that presentation
I
backwards.
know. I know.
What a nice lead in. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for that, Dr. Denise. Let's tell you about our VIP ticket. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to put in the chat. Sorry. Let me get rid of that. Aaron, do you have that VIP stuff?
Yep, I can put it in there right now. Let me go back to the chat. I have all
Well,
these
here's an
windows.
interesting question. Wondering about the legalities of creating an external mastermind. Hang on one second. Let me go back to it. External mastermind after consulting with an organization, like poaching the clients. I'm not sure I understand the
Me
question
either.
because I don't
Um,
see any issue with it whatsoever, legal or moral. Um,
no,
so Nancy,
because the
maybe I don't know if you, yeah,
Yeah, the women, like if I was talking about maybe going to a different company, these women are just in, like I said. So how it was this woman was the global pricing director for Amazon, but her dream job was Google, and she wanted to move to San Francisco and be in Google. We were in Seattle, and this other woman worked for Google in Seattle and helped her get a job down in San Francisco. So it wasn't like it was getting her away from. She was applying and doing all these things, but just having that in really helped her set it apart. So I don't feel like it was really poaching or taking somebody away. I mean, she was going to leave anyway. She was already applying and interviewing in San Francisco, but it just kind of helped her get a foot in. But if there's something else you want to ask about that or get more clarification, I'd be happy to answer that, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. I'm wondering, as far as, okay, let's say I go into an organization and I consult with them or I train with them, and in the agreements or in the legal paperwork, I'm thinking of a company where I facilitated where they say I'm not allowed to work with the employees outside the given contract, outside the work that I've been assigned to do. So I'm just wondering about that. Is that something one can negotiate in a contract, or maybe
Yeah,
because
I
I'm
would
in?
negotiate that ahead of time. I think that
yes,
would be my thing. Hey, at the end of this, I always set up the expectations like I'm going to come and do this workshop and I'm going to sell them into coaching or I'm going to offer these services. Is that okay with you? I've never had someone say, "No, you can't." So I've
yeah,
never run into that, but it could be, right? But then if you explained it and pre-framed it, but saying, well, this is ongoing support for these people. This will be after my work that we get to continue doing this work together where they feel like they're supported. Do you want your employees to feel supported? Right? Like to me,
yeah,
that's how I would pre-frame it.
yeah.
But in
I
the
agree.
negotiation at the beginning.
I would if you can negotiate it out at the beginning. If you can't, I think you can still post negotiate it by exactly what Aaron was saying, like approach them and say, "Hey, I'd love to take your employee and place them in this really high powered mastermind. They're going to get so much value out of this. Can we make an exception to your that clause in the agreement?" And again, most companies are going to see that yeah, this person's really going to grow by being able to hang out in this other, in this mastermind with other peers at their level and other industries, et cetera. Yeah. Awesome. Any last questions? When's the 4-day challenge? Again, Ilka, thank you so much for
18th.
queuing up our next talking point.
18th to the 21st.
The 18th, it's in 2 weeks, basically. So the 18th of August 18 through 21. It's just 1 hour a day, and it is free to everyone who has a VIP ticket, along with all the other bonuses you get from the VIP ticket. So this is Aaron and Stephen and I that will be running the challenge, and it's 4 days long, and encourage you to attend that if you can. All right.
Perfect. Hold on 1 second. I want to stop recording because I need to switch it to cloud recording. I was working on that.